So, Jim, let's talk about the products.
Sure.
I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Talk to people about the products. So, what's General Kinematics manufacturing and selling?
Yeah, so specifically here at Mine Expo, it's all about screening. And there's obviously a lot of big players here, and we brought one of our biggest screens. It's the STM brand of screens, and it services the mining industry so that when they're going through their process, they have a way to screen out the material that they're actually after that's going to produce whatever they're after. We're also here talking about a lot of our aggregate solutions. So if a person doesn't run a huge mine site, maybe they run a quarry, sand and gravel, all of those things fit vibratory screens, and that's what we're here talking about.
Yeah. So I saw on the website this term, which certain terms catch my eye, and the unstoppable screen.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
I think what we're really trying to highlight there is that we do something called two-mass technology, and it's where you have a secondary mass and you resonate that and it transmits through our spring system into the trough body. And so when you're in a mine application and maybe it's after a sag mill and there's a surge of material, other types of screen that use a different type of technology, it will dampen out and even stop if too much material hits that screen deck. But with a two-mass technology, it actually will pick up in stroke because that material cannot dampen it out. It'll actually put more energy into it. And so that's kind of the thinking along being unstoppable.
So again, I get bits and pieces here because I know that I've installed nothing this big. I've installed a few, but I haven't operated them.
Mm-hmm.
We usually build them and hand them over to the mine.
Yeah.
But you also talk about how the two-mass approach is different than brute force.
Right.
And you touched on that before. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a brute force application, you're going to take your motors and you're going to mount them in some way directly to the trough body. And just inherently, whether we did it or somebody else does it, there can be some flaws or some detriments to that type of a process where all that energy is going into the side wall. And that can lead to failures, which goes back to our maintenance conversation.
Yeah.
With the two-mass technology, your motors are actually mounted to that secondary mass. And then again, resonant frequency is what's going to excite the lower half, and that's where all the work is happening on that screen deck.
So I know from my experience with mining, I'm on a couple of boards, and we talk about capital versus operating costs.
Mm-hmm.
And capital is usually pretty obvious. You get a quote.
Right.
The operating costs,
yeah,
maybe not so obvious, but your systems are geared to address that.
I would again agree with you very, very wholeheartedly on that fact.
I'm quoting your website. Well, so that's my knowledge.
You will have to give a shout out to our marketing team for sure. When you're talking about operating costs, I think the big thing that people are going to go to is downtime, and there cannot be downtime in a mining application. You know this. Yeah. And so with these machines, and what we're seeing is that when we replace a brute force screen, we have got examples where sometimes they're having to be taken out of service, every 4 to 6 months.
It's a huge job.
It's a huge job. And then they've got two screens that they're constantly trying to match to their planned downtimes. Mm-hmm. And if a sidewall cracks, then that becomes unplanned downtime, which is not acceptable. Our screens, because we're not putting those motors directly on the trough, on the side of the troughs, we're not having those same inherent failures as a brute force style. Yeah. And what that does is that can mean the screen could be in operation for 5, 6, 7 years, depending on what type of product they're mining. But in our big iron ore facilities, we're seeing 5 years runtime without having to be replaced. Wow. And so that is what matters to those companies.
Yeah. No, the people often think of operating costs as the parts and the maintenance, but the downtime is the most expensive part of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. They can't afford to. I mean, what they're doing is it's so valuable. And so any moment that they're not taking advantage of that huge infrastructure that they've, paid to put in place is harmful to their business. Yeah. And so we certainly take that very seriously, and everything we do is designed to run and not go down.
Yeah.